what I was about to attempt with Mongolia would totally change that, and I didn't know it was a world record. I was doing it anyway. I wasn't in it for the record. I was in it for the adventure. I thought, wow, can you imagine walking 100 miles across Mongolia, or 200 miles? And then each day it started to creep bigger and bigger. And I was like, maybe north to south of the country, till eventually I was like, let's walk from west to east across the country. And I couldn't find anyone that would want to join me. No one wanted to join me. They were like, no, it's suicide. So I decided, I'm doing this solo and unsupported. And it was
unsupported. I know it sounds really silly, but I need to ask it.
Yeah.
Unsupported means no support anywhere.
Yeah, no. So there's a few people that say unsupported, and they've got a van following them like 5-10 miles behind. That's not unsupported. That's supported, I believe. With me, it was completely unsupported, whereby my insurance was invalid. My evacuation plan was the most basic.
Which was what?
Which was if I was in trouble.
Scream, help me!
Yeah, I had a text-only satellite device with me that I would text my agent in the capital city, Ulaanbaatar, and I'd need to allow at least 3 to 4 days for him to get me and another 2 days for him to get me out to safety. Whereas if I stood on the back end of a snake, 6 days you're talking, it's just not doable. Whereas the previous guy, the first person actually ever to attempt a solo and unsupported trek across Mongolia, he was a soldier, he was a desert explorer, crossed the Sahara Desert. He attempted this 3 times, but was evacuated on all 3 occasions. And that story alone, I'll get to that, but that almost put me off Mongolia as a whole, because then that's when I started to feel a bit naive as to what I'm up against. A legit badass had, and he looked like Jason Statham. He was late 30s. He was an experienced motherfucker. And I was effectively a beach bum Muay Thai fighter, making pennies whilst scuba diving. Had never been to the desert before. Had certainly never tested myself. Never done any real map and compass. And never really done any survival other than the Burmese hill tribe,
So, a couple of things. You've used the word reckless numerous times.
Yeah.
Are you reckless?
Not anymore. Right now, it's meticulously planned. It's clear attention to detail. It's solid teams in place, a big team around it now. But back then, it was very reckless. But I needed to go there in order to get here. And I'm sure you've experienced yourself along your career. You needed to do some pretty reckless, pretty stupid stuff. You look back on it and you think, fucking hell, maybe you got lucky there. But you had to go there to get here. And it's one of those.
Is it age and wisdom?
I think it is. I think it's age, wisdom, it's building up those track habits, the experience, and also building up that kudos where you're able to prepare better with also a good team around you. Because with Mongolia, everyone just deemed it impossible. People had tried, people had failed. I couldn't get brands on board. They would be like, well, who are you? What have you done? Good question. I haven't really done anything. And I'm not really a name. I'd speak to agencies, and there's travel agencies or logistics agencies, and there was never any reason for them to get involved. They had no reason to believe that I would be the first to do it.
Of course.
They would be like, well, a military officer has tried 3 times. Why do you think at the age of 22 you can do it? And it was a very good, legit question.
Yeah. So let me ask you the question now. Why could an experienced soldier that's been trained in all sorts of terrain, late 30s, rugged, resilient, why could he not succeed? But a 22-year-old beach boy, like you said, why did you succeed?
I think there's a few different reasons, but I think one of the main reasons is I held probably a lot more fear than him. And I think held a lot more fear. Yeah, I think he was probably a lot more confident, whereas maybe there were certain things that slipped.
Interesting.
Whereas I think I was shit scared. I would have nightmares, and I had a lot of doubt, but I had announced it. I had committed. I told people I'm going to do it, and I'm a man of my word. I'm going to stick to it. And so that meant that I trained and got all of the logistics in place. And that meant, in a way, it was reckless to some extent with evacuation plan. But I didn't have any other alternative. I didn't have the finance to put in place a better evacuation plan. And the record was to do it solo and unsupported. And all insurance companies don't support solo and unsupported expeditions. So that wasn't an option either.
Because the chance of dying is so great, the chances of having to get rescued is such a high.
Yeah.
Well, that's never been done before.
Yeah, they just don't do it. And I tried every insurance company. So did my logistics manager. I really got big teams involved on this one who were helping voluntarily, putting their time in to help.
I was going to ask. They wanted to help because they saw a young man with a dream and a desire, and they wanted to be involved, and also for your own safety. Because you sound like you were going to do it anyway, whether you had a team or not.
Exactly.
And much rather you be safe, as safe as one could be, than just being a young kid doing it.
It was that, yeah. And I think by the time that as I mentioned, I was a scuba diver in Thailand. As I started to do extensive research, I was trying to team up with the Guinness Book of Records. I was teaming up with the Royal Geographic Society in London, who cover all expeditions, big or small. I had on-ground logistics in Mongolia, which was super important. And I was really getting all of these teams to do extensive research to find evidence to suggest that someone had or hadn't attempted this trip before. And that's how we came across the guy who previously attempted it. And I wrote to him. I sent an email.
That's smart.
Yeah, a very amateur email, but I wanted to look for the dangers. What do I need to look out for? And he got back and he said, he was a nice guy. And he said, the dangers you've got is the dry wells, the stagnant water, the drunken nomadic drifters, the snow blizzards, the sandstorms.
The drunken nomadic drifters.
Yeah.
Sounds terrifying.
Yeah, pretty much, these guys.
The wolves.
Yeah, the wolves, yeah. And he got back, and then I looked more into this guy, and it's only then when I discovered who he was, what he had achieved, his experiences. I dismissed Mongolia. I put that aside. I was like, maybe do a safer country, more populated country, maybe do a country in Europe. But then, as we spoke about before the podcast, just because no one's found a way to do something doesn't mean it can't be done. I refocused my energy. I thought with this, if I do the right due diligence, if I plan it, if I train physically and mentally, why can't I achieve this?